This was me on day one of the NROTC program. When I look at this photo, I had no idea what the rest of the training pipeline would be like. And all I wished in that moment was that I had the reassurance and the information that I needed to get through this program. And in this video, I'm gonna share with you guys everything that I wish I had known to hopefully give some of you clarity, confidence in the program, what it is, and how exactly it works, and what it looks like at the end of the process when you're done with it. What is NROTC? Navy Reserve Officer Training Commissioning Program, right? That's what NROTC stands for. It is a program designed to train and produce officers in the United States Navy or the Marine Corps. It's different than being enlisted in the Navy or Marine Corps. If you're enlisting in the Navy or Marine Corps, you are preemptively signing a 4-year, 5-year contract to join one of those two branches, in which you will be given a purely tactical job starting out. So, Navy enlisted, Marine Corps enlisted, think door kicking infantrymen, boots on the ground, riflemen, breacher, right, mortarmen. Officers lead the enlisted. They set the example, they set the precedent, and they take advice of the senior enlisted, and they work with them to meet in this middle ground of leadership and execution, right? The NROTC program produces officers that plan, they allocate the resources, they employ the people in accordance with their capabilities, they plan the mission, brief the mission, supervise the safety controls of the mission. NROTC prepares you for that. And the program essentially is very effective. I think they do a very good job producing high quality officers, especially for those that are willing to take upon the advice of the senior enlisted in the program, and the senior enlisted instructors that teach what good officership should and should not be. So what do you do in an average week in NROTC, right? They have a few ways that they're going to build leadership into you and prepare you for the demands of active duty life. The most important one, probably the highest impact one, is going to be your lab day. So every Thursday from 3 to 5 p.m., my unit would meet as an entire platoon or battalion, whatever your unit's going to call it. Very hands-on experience. You might do medical emergencies, tactical casualty combat care. So you do get to do some really interesting stuff that builds on your military professional development during these lab studies. NROTC is huge on also doing drill, right? Kind of, order, discipline, timing, attention to detail. You're going to do a lot of different drill competitions. And especially in the spring semester, you go to a competition. My unit went to one called Northwest Navy. So you compete for who can make the least amount of mistakes doing drill in formation. How well can you snap that rifle up? How well can you walk around in step and do all of the movements that are part of the drill card, right? So that's pretty much what that one is. If you're a Marine option, you're going to be going to OCS prep class as well during your average week. So on Fridays from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. was when we were doing OCS prep classes. Basically, we start the morning, we work out, we kind of get yelled at to get from point A to point B during the workout. It's a simulated kind of environment for a few hours. Then we would take academic classes on the interior guard, or what it's like to stand duty, or just Marine Corps history. You're going to learn about all the academics that you need to in your OCS prep class that you're going to partake in once a week. NROTC, hands down, if you're a Marine option or you're striving to be a Marine officer, I would say that NROTC is the best way to be the most prepared for Marine Corps OCS. I have a whole video on what made me successful that you can check out later in this section. And even if you want to take my online course, that's a whole NROTC comprehensive, start to finish, walk you through it type of companion. If you're not in NROTC, look at a college that offers OCS prep class. They're also called Bulldog, right? Bulldog prep class is another way it's kind of like another name that they call it. You're also going to have extracurricular activities in your NROTC program, right? Whether you're Marine or Navy, you might be asked to be the officer in charge of planning a lab. If you're in charge of the medical emergencies lab, you need to learn how to facilitate instructors, create a timeline. How are people going to rotate? Brief this plan to the active duty staff. What is the content? Who's teaching the content? Has it been quality viewed? Is the formatting on all this stuff good to go? So that's like what an officer in charge would do in that particular lab. You might have other ones where you might be in charge of just leading the 6-mile hike if you're a Marine option. So if you might need to plan the route, do route recon, make a terrain model of it, brief the route to everybody, come up with the operational risk worksheet, the safety worksheet to make sure that all the controls are in place. You got the safety vehicle, who's driving the safety vehicle. So many different aspects of planning will go into these officer in charge events that you will be part of in your NROTC program. Generally, you will be the OIC for these events, probably sophomore, junior, senior year. As a freshman, you're kind of coming in and just learning everything and just really just follow simple instructions, listen to your squad leader. But these are the things to come if you are part of it, right? Our unit did shooting competitions. We did color guard. We'd do color guard for the national anthem at the Utah Jazz basketball games, which were always really cool. So you'd practice leading up to that. There's, like I said, all kinds of different extracurricular activities that you can take part in. Sometimes we did volunteer work. We'd just pick up trash around the church. We'd pick up trash around the university, and just kind of give back to the community in that way. So these all take place relatively during your lab days, Thursdays, 3 to 5 p.m. What are some other things that you got to do in an average week of ROTC? Our unit had to do fundraising. We had to work half of the football games and scan tickets, so that would raise funds for us to be able to pay for the lab experiences that we want. As much as I wish the government would pay for our, firefighter training and all the other stuff that we got to do during lab, they didn't. So we had to fundraise a lot of that. Another thing you're going to do is you're going to stand duty in ROTC. Not every unit does this, but essentially that means that you need to lock up the NROTC building on campus like once a month, once every other week if you're a freshman. Basically, you scan the perimeter, you look for stuff, you pick up trash, you fill out the logbook. It's just kind of like a simulated way of standing duty in the fleet that you'll be very much accustomed to in active duty life. But it's only a few hours out of your day, once a month. People make the duty schedule, they send it out. You got to make sure you're there on time. You'll get yelled at if you're not. Billets. Billets are different than the officer in charge portion. So if you have a billet, billets could be like the physical training officer, the operations officer, the platoon commander, the squad leader. These are all billets that you can have in NROTC. They are mock leadership billets positions, so to say. You have your active duty staff. They actually run the ROTC unit itself. But then you have these midshipman billets where you are in charge of accountability of the freshmen, if you're a squad leader, getting them to the right place at the right time with the right gear and passing information that comes from the top down to the lowest level. If you're the physical training officer, you're going to need to plan the workouts, help the freshmen that are struggling with their fitness tests, and make sure that the conduct of these morning workouts always go well. Every Monday, my unit would PT from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. They're usually calisthenics workouts, some weight training involved, a lot of cardio would be involved as well, but they're basically like HIIT workouts. That's probably the best type of fitness I would categorize my battalion workouts as. There's even a midshipman team captain, midshipman battalion commanding officer, midshipman CO. There's a lot of names for it. That person basically is working directly with the actual active duty captain or lieutenant colonel that is in charge of the unit and kind of just planning strategic level things like what labs do we want to do and how do we want to organize the staff. So it's really cool. It's really good training. There's a lot of value in those billets if you really take them to heart. I was the supply officer starting out, so I was literally just in charge of inventorying the gear we needed for new student orientation. I was in charge of maintaining gear accountability, just working with the supply chief, the actual civilian that ordered our gear and that stuff. So that was pretty cool. And then by the end of it, I was the battalion commanding officer, the midshipman commanding officer. And I got to plan, organize my staff, organize the labs, and follow up with a lot of these things and attend all the big level meetings that the active duty staff would go to from a real military operations standpoint. So I got a lot of direct leadership training with the active duty staff throughout my whole time. I was the physical training officer my junior year, and it was really awesome being able to train freshmen and help them work on their pull-ups, their run time, their push-ups, and all of that stuff in between. Summer training happens after your freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, and then that's about it. So usually you'll spend like a couple weeks on a ship. You'll kind of learn what ship life is like. If you want to be a submarine officer, you'll go spend a week on a submarine if they have an opening for that. If you're on the marine officer pipeline, they used to go to like a mountain warfare school and like a training center in California. I don't know what they do now. It really depends on the unit, specifically what they go to, but usually you're going to spend a week or two on a ship during your summertime, or you're going to go to OCS after your junior year, going into your senior year. These summer trainings, they're not mandatory. They're going to make you feel like they're mandatory. I would highly recommend not missing one of these experiences because you really get a good lens into what community you're getting yourself into if that's something that you're interested in. I get a question a lot about going to NSI after you graduate high school. So NSI is a couple weeks long. It's in Great Lakes. It's like a very, very, very lightweight mock boot camp for Navy and Marine options. So if you get a scholarship from NROTC, you're going to go to NSI, and they're basically just going to yell at you, get you up early, walk you around, march you to the chow hall, have you do push-ups and sit-ups and workouts in the morning. They're going to teach you do swim qualifications, some basic on-deck firefighting drills. It's really not designed to get rid of you, and it's not like buds at all. It's not like some Navy SEAL crazy training that you might think that it is, but it's really just a way to make sure like your resolve is really good going into this program and that you know that you're signing up for, you know, a more rigorous lifestyle than the average civilian. So you're going to get military culture shock just by going to NSI. It's going to, you might think it's the hardest thing that you've ever done just because it's such a foreign experience that you've just never been exposed to in your life thus far. But just know that like they don't have a high attrition rate. I think a lot of candidates will just self-select and they just will quit the program. I do think that it is mandatory now. I think that you do have to pass NSI to activate your scholarship. There might be an exception or two made for that on your unit if you have a specific personal thing going on. I don't know for sure about that, but definitely assume that it's mandatory if you're in high school and you're watching this video. And even again, if you want, you don't have to. Part of my course, I have an NSI preparation course for the physical, mental, academic demands of it if you find that useful. At the end of the day, just do a lot of calisthenics, do a lot of running, and ideally maybe get into a sport of some kind going into that summer just to keep your fitness up. The big question now is this program right for you, and should you do it? Should you follow through with it? I would say that if your heart is primarily in being an officer in the Navy or Marine Corps, then yes, this program is for you. If you're looking at this program just because you want the government to pay for college with the understanding that you do a few years active duty in the military, in the Navy or Marine Corps, I really would discourage you from just doing NROTC simply because while they pay for your college, you're going to spend a huge portion of your time in your life and your time, your free time doing NROTC related events. And if your heart's not in the right place, then waking up at 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. to work out and to do drill and stand in formation, it's going to add up really fast and you're going to wish that you didn't do it. And on top of that, you still have to go to college and maintain a degree. So it's a very fulfilling process, but you have to want to be in the military, active duty, deployed overseas, at least once or twice in your 4 years immediately after college, right? If you have a spouse or a girlfriend, they need to understand that your commitment is going to ramp up as soon as you graduate. And hopefully along the way through this program, you guys are talking about what that looks like for you being gone for 6 months, 3 months, 4 months, traveling around the country to go to different schools. So just, you have to come in with the mindset that your main focus is going to be serving as an officer in the military. Getting a degree is really awesome, and it's a great blessing that they pay for it. But that is not the primary reason you should do the program because of the other commitments and the big responsibility of being an officer that you're going to have in the fleet, okay? So I totally understand how it's overwhelming and how there isn't a lot of information. My parents scoured the internet. They were talking to enlisted recruiters that were trying to sell me on going enlisted, and they were trying to kind of confuse the process so they could maybe get one of their numbers on the enlisted side. So the first step that I would recommend is asking for an officer recruiter specifically, if you could possibly find one at your high school that's assigned to your area, and have them start you on that process. But at the very least, if anyone's watching this and they can kind of relate to what I'm saying, just know that it is a confusing process at first. There's a lot of unknowns. You don't always know like how it's going to work out, or maybe you haven't seen the best examples of, you know, people that went through the NROTC program and liked how they turned out. I would just say keep an open mind with it. I would go back and do the program all over again. I absolutely loved how I turned out, my leadership and my ability. And looking at how far I've come along the way was something that I'll never forget. And I'm scared to think about who I would be and how I would be in my professional life if I had never gone through a training pipeline as challenging as NROTC and going the Marine officer route. But on top of that, you make such a big impact on the people that you get the privilege of leading once you've earned all the training and you've earned the respect of being a commissioned officer. And I just really, it's such a great program to go through. It's very challenging, but the last thing I will say is that not every unit's perfect, right? You're not owed a perfect unit. Some of the active duty staff instructors are disgruntled from their fleet tour and they're in ROTC to retire out of it, or they just want to chill out a little bit, or, you know, there's so many different flavors of active duty staff instructors. And so just because you might feel intimidated by your unit, a unit that you're looking at, just know that like no unit's perfect. And just let me know if there's anything that's different since I've gone through the program a few years ago, if they've changed anything, because that would really help out the community here. But feel free to leave a comment. I'll do my best to respond. Thank you guys for watching. Check out my blog also. I got some more content on this, and I'll try to roll out some more of the requests that I've been getting in my email. So stay tuned for the next video.